All right, welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're putting a seriously fascinating new development in the AI space straight under the microscope. We're talking about Sakana Fugu, a brand new AI model out of Japan that has been making some massive waves lately. We're going to objectively test the really heavy claims behind this new model, just to see if the reality actually matches all this hype. So, the million-dollar question we're tackling right out of the gate is this. Can a total newcomer actually dethrone the industry giants? Word on the street is that in major benchmarks, Sakana Fugu is going toe-to-toe with and supposedly even defeating top-tier models like Claude's FBL5. But hey, we all know how it goes. Controlled benchmarks are one thing, right? Real-world application is a whole different ballgame. We're going to find out if this model can actually beat Claude in practical, everyday developer scenarios. Okay, here's our quick roadmap for today's stress test. We'll start with the Sakana Fugu hype, look at how to actually access the model, run a 3D jungle HTML test, move on to an agency website design, build a Flutter weather app, and wrap up with our final verdict.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the Sakana Fugu hype, benchmarks versus reality.
The sheer ambition of these benchmarks is honestly staggering. If you look at the primary data circulating around its launch, Sakana Fugu isn't just pitching itself as some budget alternative. No, it claims to outright defeat Claude's highly capable FBL5 model in benchmark testing. And on top of that, it's being compared directly to top-tier heavyweight models like ChatGPT Opus. Supposedly, it absolutely excels in the heavy lifting tasks, coding, complex reasoning, and deep thinking. These are some seriously bold claims that set a ridiculously high bar for our test today. Moving right along to Section 2, accessing the Japanese model, navigating the friction. So getting your hands on Fugu isn't exactly a seamless one-click experience right now. It's a paid model accessed via OpenRouter. And once you strip away all the URL parameters to finally find the main chat page, you're immediately hit with a native Japanese UI. Honestly, it's kind of like navigating an escape room just to say hello to the AI. You literally have to use Google Translate to convert the page to English just to figure out where your prompt goes. Oh, and here's a super vital step if you're testing this yourself. You have to manually crank the AI's effort setting all the way up to full. We want to ensure it's running at absolute maximum performance for our coding tests.
All right, into the fire. Section 3, Test 1, the 3D Jungle HTML Environment Test.
For our very first practical stress test, we really wanted to see how well this model pays attention to granular, super specific instructions. We asked it to generate HTML code for a 3D jungle environment. But we didn't just ask for a generic jungle. We gave it a highly specific prompt demanding trees, detailed ground and grass, a lake, rocks, a foggy atmosphere, and scattered logs. The goal here is simple, really. Test the AI's reading comprehension. Can it actually translate a strict list of constraints into functional code?
Well, this brilliantly illustrates the gap between benchmark hype and reality. Now, Sakana Fugo generated the code incredibly fast. We're talking seconds, but the output? Yeah, it was pretty lacking. It gave us a basic environment with a lake, some trees, and the fog we asked for, but it completely ignored our instructions to include rocks and grass. It just missed the fine details entirely. We took that exact same prompt, fed it to Claude, and Claude flawlessly executed every single granular detail. Realistic water reflections, rocks, random ground objects, logs. It even went above and beyond and added flying birds. Fugo definitely stumbled on prompt adherence here.
Just to be totally impartial and give you the full context, we ran that same prompt through Gemini as well. And you know what? Gemini handled it incredibly well. It delivered beautiful, realistic lake reflections, highly accurate ground details, rocks, grass, the whole shebang. So this just further highlights Fugu's shortcomings in this specific test. Compared to its peers, it just couldn't follow complex instructions as closely.
Let's pivot to Section 4, Test 2, Agency Website Landing Page Design. We decided to switch gears from a complex 3D environment to a standard, modern web design task, building a landing page for an agency. And in stark contrast to that first test, Fugu bounced back instantly. We fed it the prompt, pasted the generated code into our editor, and wow, the result was fantastic. It flawlessly generated a beautifully clean, modern agency website design. Crucially, it was fully responsive right out of the gate. Not a single hitch, no obvious layout flaws. For straightforward web design structuring, it absolutely nailed it.
Let's turn up the heat for Section 5, Test 3, Flutter Weather App and Real-World API Integration. We really wanted to push Fugu way beyond basic HTML and CSS, so we set up a fresh Flutter project and prompted it to build a weather application. Fugu wrote the code, we pasted it in, and the app compiled and launched perfectly on the very first try. But here's the real kicker. To make the app work, Fugu autonomously integrated a live API to fetch real-world data. We tested it out, typed in the city of Indore, and bam, it instantly displayed the accurate real-time temperature and wind speed. Search for Bhopal? Worked flawlessly again. This is huge because it proves the model isn't just hallucinating or spitting out hard-coded placeholder data. It successfully wrote the back-end logic to hit a real API and pull live stats. For developers, this proves real-world back-end utility. This right here is where Fugu truly shines.
Finally, that brings us to Section 6, the final verdict, hype versus reality.
To impartially summarize everything we've found today, on the plus side, Sakana Fugu is blazingly fast at generating code. It clearly excels at creating clean, responsive UI designs, just like we saw with that agency landing page. And its ability to handle complex API integrations right out of the box, highly impressive. But there are some undeniable cons. As our 3D jungle test showed, it struggles with complex prompt accuracy, missing granular details that Claude and Gemini catch in their sleep. Plus, there's a real friction point with the Japanese language barrier on its interface, which makes it a bit clunky for a global user base right now.
So, we're looking at a genuinely fascinating piece of tech. It's incredibly powerful in certain coding domains, yet clearly a bit rough around the edges in others, which leaves us with a pretty provocative thought. If the developers behind Sakana Fugo roll out updates that fix these prompt accuracy issues and smooth out that user interface, will this lightning-fast model eventually completely reshape the AI landscape? Could it become the new industry standard? It's definitely a space we're going to be watching like a hawk. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep learning.